Hello and welcome to the Metapod, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. There's one thing that didn't really evolve though, Sean. It's the format. We won't necessarily talk about the results in terms of the Vancouver regionals that just recently happened, but what we can tell you is that in Vancouver, Hisuian Goodra was a pretty good deck that went on. So it didn't win.
Oh, I was going to say,
believe.
did Goodra win?
No, but I remember seeing a tweet that said that there were more Goodras in day 2 than lost boxes.
Wow.
And I do know that Hisuian Goodra did make the finals and got second. I didn't get to watch a ton of it because of work.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for the hottest deck, just look up Hisuian Goodra over on Limitless's website. But Sean, how are you doing this past week? Did you play any Pokemon?
I did not play any Pokemon. I'm trying to remember back. No Pokemon was played by me. I'm just at this point, I'm like holding out for Scarlet and Violet to do anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's just gonna be so nice, and it's gonna be really cool to see like new cards, new refreshed cards,
silver borders.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, new designs that are much needed and things of that nature. I've only been playing like the Worlds decks. Yeah. That's it. That's all I've been doing.
Yeah, fair enough. Against yourself.
Holding on for dear life, you know. Just
just hoping and waiting to be saved by the pre-release, which is going to be this weekend.
It is. If you do plan on jumping on a Scarlet and Violet pre-release, they should be happening either this week or this weekend. I don't know if they usually like start on this Fridays.
Weekend. Yeah, they start.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if some local stores are doing, maybe they might do Fridays, but definitely Saturday they should start.
So if you want to get the cards early, 2 weeks before they release, because they release at the end of the month, 2 weeks before Scarlet and Violet officially releases with the booster boxes and things like that, the pre-release events are a lot of fun to go to, especially if you haven't really been to a competition before, but you kind of like know how to play the game. Pre-release events are real casual. They're real fun. You know, it's just like a 40 card deck out of your pre-release kit, you know, 4 prizes, and half the time people just dead draw, and that's how you win. So you can get some extra packs out of it at some stores, and it's just a lot of fun. You can also meet some of the community members and things like that.
And I will say, if you haven't been playing Pokemon since 2019 or earlier, going to this pre-release is actually, I think it's very important, because what we'll talk about later today, like rotation is going to happen soon. And typically in the base set of any new series, they fill the pre-release kits with like the more staple cards. And that will include things like Nest Ball. So if you don't have any Nest Balls because you haven't been playing for very long, hey, go to a pre-release event. You'll probably walk away with almost a play set of them, like at least 2, maybe 3 or more. So good way to get some of these like older cards that have been reprinted into this new format too, you know.
If you want to know the full list of reprinted cards that are coming in the Scarlet and Violet set, again, if you're a long-time player, you know, haven't played for a while, we did do a set review in last week's podcast episode, so go check that out, the last episode. But also, I'm curious, I don't know how this goes. Usually in pre-release kits, like they have a couple trainers and stuff from previous sets, right?
I mean, knowing what, like the people that design the kit, I'm guessing they'll only put trainers in that are still going to be standard.
I was going to say, well, yeah, standard legal, but like, what's a good example? Level Ball, right? Yeah. Like, could you find Level Ball in the pre-release kits?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Is it going to have yellow borders or silver borders?
It should have silver borders because it would all be printed in the Scarlet Violet, I would assume. That would be really
I mean,
weird.
I don't think Level Ball's getting reprinted, right? I don't think it's getting a new regulation mark. I don't think it was one of the cards last week.
That's
or like an example like that. Like if they have if they reprint something from, what was the last set? Silver Tempest.
Yeah.
Right? One of the trainer cards over there. Like, is it going to be yellow? Is it going to be silver? I don't know. Let us know on the Metapod Twitter at MetapodTCG. That was totally not a transition into plugging our Twitter account.
No,
But
I actually that is fascinating to think like, will there be a mix of yellow and silver border cards? My gut, Jake says no,
I
because
feel like it is going to be a mix.
the reason I think no is because I still think about like, look, this is still, even if it's a casual tournament, there's still tournaments, right? And
Hmm.
to have multiple, but then again, they will be standard legal in multiple
Yeah, and
boards.
I mean it has to be. And like if you have like a level ball, for example, now with the silver border, like that's a whole new card technically because it's considered like a new art in a sense, isn't it?
No, I don't think that. It'll be an
I don't
interesting
know.
thing because there will be silver bordered research and yellow
Yeah,
border research. So
because it's getting reprinted.
yeah, because
But
they're actually properly reprinted
they would only print the new one in there.
if they're going to give it the new regulation mark.
Yeah.
Probably. You're probably right about that. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm so fascinated by this question.
I mean,
It just popped up in my head.
we will see how chaotic they want it to all look um, when the pre-release happens, I guess.
If though, maybe you're not necessarily interested in the playing the competitive side, things like that, and you just appreciate the art. I know some of my Pokemon arts are some of my favorites of all time. I've got a couple cards slammed to the side for that reason. The Pokemon Company
Mm-hmm.
has produced this new Twitter account within the last like 2 weeks, I think.
Instagram.
I've been Instagram. I'm sorry. What did I say?
Twitter. It's fine.
Instagram account. Those of you watching on Spotify, YouTube, or whatever, will see it. PokeCA_ART_life. It's a Japanese Twitter account, and they just post the arts. You know, it's
Yep.
just clean cut versions of the cards. You know, Incineroar GX, for example, is a previous card that they've posted on here. If you ever see that card, it's the card, you know, as if you're holding it, but there's no text. There's nothing. It's just the art of Incineroar jumping in the ring. It's actually quite cool. And I actually have notifications turned on for this Instagram account because it is absolutely gorgeous. It's also really cool if you get some arts to where like, oh, what card is this on? You know, they also in
Mm-hmm.
each post that they make give the card with like the full text so you can like see what card that is, so you could be like, oh, maybe I need to put that card on my buy list or something. Maybe there's a Komiya card that you've never gotten before, you didn't know existed, that maybe was only a promo in Japan. Boom, now you know.
I will also say, Jake, it's fascinating because I think they have the same artist. Yeah. So there's a Gloom. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at one of the pieces of art. It can also give you an interesting history of art through the years. There's a Gloom card from Expedition era, like the e-reader era, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So like pretty old, right? Like about 20 years old now. Um, and so they show the art, which is like adorable. Then they show the art on the card. Then they cut to art from a much more recent card, like within the last year. And it is that same Gloom. And in the original art, he's sleeping on a tree branch. Now he has woken up and is falling and he is scared. And it's just so cool because then, like, unless you're like a really like deep into the art history scene of the Pokemon card game, it's cool to see these little like homages that they do 20 years
it's
later.
it's a lot of like the story stuff. I mean, we talked about in a previous week when we talked about a set list of the character rares, you know, the Ralts, the Curlia, the Gardevoir, you know, growing up with the trainer coming out in the future sets. Like that was one of their posts as well. And so, you know, series of Pokemon cards can tell these stories. And, you know, what you just said, you know, with the Gloom is legitimately what that is, you know, a continuation of that story. So this is a really cool Instagram account to follow. I mean, they don't do much besides post these things, but like it's so cool that they post these. I love these.
Yeah, especially like, you know, if you enjoy watching the people who make the art, you know, who do like the art and then they expand the art of the card.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the official version, so to speak, of that. Like, I think the artists who are doing that, they're like taking their own interpretation. It's its own thing. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool because you can kind of see, oh man, if they didn't have any of the text or anything on it, what would that art look like? Yeah, it's just It's really neat. This is for any of the people who just love Pokemon card art. You got to follow this account.
Yeah, and I mean it's just so easy for them to do. Also, and I think they post like every day, or not every day, um, but they do it pretty often. Like this Mankey one was posted a day ago. Meowth 5 days. The Sprigatito line 6, 7, maybe like on weekdays. Do they post it on weekdays? Seems like
I mean,
just
perhaps
looking at this.
it's also being posted probably in Japan, so time difference. Who knows? Who even
Who knows?
knows?
But anyways, there's a lot of great stuff in here. So we just kind of wanted to talk about this for all you card lovers out there, I
Yeah,
would say.
pretty neat. But Jake, you know what else is super neat?
What is neat?
They have changed the booster pack configuration, starting with Scarlet and Violet. And I, for one, am excited about this. I know that we had previously talked about how the price of the packs was going up 50 cents. And then they said they were going to give like extra foil cards to compensate. I don't remember what we predicted, if we predicted anything, but like it's officially official, like what this set is going to look like. So Jake, what is this looking like?
So again, just to tell you, because of like global inflation, packs are going from $4 to $4.50. But because of that, we mentioned more foil cards. They now guarantee 3 foil cards in order to, compensate for that price. Each Scarlet and Violet booster pack will feature 2 reverse holo cards and 1 holo card in terms of the slots as previous. So this is the order of the packs now. 4 commons, 3 uncommons, 2 reverse holos, and 1 holo. In there, you'll also find 1 basic energy and 1 code card. So it's really like 11 card packs now. Before it was just 10 card packs and a code card. Now it's 11 cards and then a code card on top of that.
And what's specifically interesting is they've changed the ordering. So you don't have to do the 4 card trick anymore.
It's like a pack. Isn't Magic like that, where you just like open the pack and then you just go for it,
And you just go to the
ones
back.
in the back?
Yeah. Some packs are like that, and some packs are the exact opposite, where the rare card
Maybe the
is
one
up
that
front.
I opened then. I opened then have the cool one in the back.
Dude, Magic is a weird one. Like the packs that were printed in Japan put the rare at the front. The packs that are printed in America have the rare at the back. Who knows? Who knows?
We know what we have here in Pokemon now, and the new configuration, according to PokeBeach, which is where we're getting this article, also means that TPCI cut 2 common cards in favor for a second reverse holo and a guaranteed holo.
Yep.
So that is interesting as well, that they're, not only switching up the order of things, but also the amount of things inside of it in terms of what they give and take and things like that. The illustration rares or special illustration rares, so like as you're seeing on the screen here, your Palmont or your Miraidon EX special art looking thing, they will take place of the second reverse holo slot. They will have a single and double gold colored stars respectively for their rarity symbols. So instead of the before, like the common, uncommon, things like that, if you zoom in on that card, the rare star is now a different star. It's that gold, and then the Miraidon there has the 2 stars there. Special illustration rare holos, they're looking to be golden again, Sean.
I mean, I think the main
I don't know
thing,
where I was going with that.
The main thing here is that like it's very similar to the current packs in terms of like in one of the reverse holo slots you can get like the character rares, or what they're calling illustration rares now, and then you can get the other hit, if you will. It might just be a holo, it could be your EXs, it could be your full arts and gold cards or whatever. And then the benefit is you basically will be guaranteed another reverse holo, just a regular reverse holo. It could be a reverse holo of a rare, right? So you could actually walk away with a 3 rare pack, which is like, that's interesting, right?
The hollow rares will, or I'm sorry, just the hollow spots of the very last card will have a couple different rarities inside of it. So rare hollows and double rare hollows will have single and black colored stars. So your rare hollows is just like, your regular hollow rare that you get. The double hollow rare is like your Miraidon EX, just the regular card that you will more often than see. Ultra rare hollows feature 2 white stars as the rarity symbol, which is like your full art supporters, things of that nature there. And then you also have the hyper rares, your gold Miraidon, gold rare, gold. Your gold cards are going to have 3 gold stars inside of them.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think we have a picture of that because there's no no English version of the cards out yet for that rarity. But yeah, I don't know.
We know kind of what the card's going to be. We know that it's the gold cards. They're going to have the 3 gold stars.
Yeah, the gold cards and like the alternate art ultra rare that isn't a special illustration art. I mean, there's a lot of different versions of things now, but net, you could pull crazy awesome packs with like a special illustration rare and a full art, supporter and a reverse hollow of a rare. Like you can get all of that in one pack, and that's pretty neat.
So we're naming off all these cards, I'm giving the example of full art, supporters, gold items, things like that. But from these packs as well, you can pull 2 just like regular reverse hollows and 1 double rare, ultra rare, hollow rare, whatever. There's different combinations that you can have in here. The new reverse hollow pattern is kind of just like it's like tiled. It's like not stained glass tiled, because stained glass was another hollow pattern, I think, in like Japan sets.
Yeah, I mean, this one basically looks like flooring, like mosaic flooring.
Yes, that's the word that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Mosaic flooring, and it's got the energy symbol of whatever that Pokemon is. Grimer being a dark Pokemon, Cyclizar, I think is how it's called. Being a normal Pokemon in there with the normal symbols. So interesting, but it'll be cool. The end of non-hollow rare, Sean.
Thank God. I mean, that was
no more feeling bad that you just got a regular card.
Can you I will say that was the biggest whiff when you would oftentimes open a pack and then the only shiny thing in there was your reverse hollow, which oftentimes was just poop anyways, and you're like, oh, okay. Trash.
Yeah,
pack.
I mean, just not only did like the reverse hollows look bad, but
yeah,
it's just,
I will say
a lot of times they were small.
I'm glad that they cut I'm glad that they cut common cards in order to make the space in the pack, because typically, for those of you listening, like that, I don't know how often you play, but the common cards are like your Pokemon that you may use to evolve, but for the most part, common cards are
all
not.
Trainer cards are uncommon.
Exactly. So like the uncommons are really the ones you want to play with. Commons are not typically that valuable. So if they'd cut an uncommon slot, that would have been really annoying for players. So it seems like they've really geared this towards maintaining the ratio for players as well, which I like.
And plus, I mean, still common cards are the majority of what you're going to get in your packs, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably going to get in a booster box every single common card that is in the set. That's usually what happens. And oftentimes as well, you get pretty much almost every single uncommon on top of that. Now, you may only get 1 of each uncommon, whereas, you probably get like 2 or 3 of each common card. But it kind of balances out a little bit in there as well. So I wonder how long it takes until people start getting sad that they're only pulling hollow rares. It's like, oh, drat, only a hollow rare, not an ultra rare hollow.
I wonder how long it takes before somebody tries to pawn this set off on people for extra money, saying it's a special set.
I mean, I guarantee it's like already happening on eBay or something.
For those of you who don't know, typically special sets were indicated by the fact that there was a hollow in every pack. And now that there's a holo in every pack of Scarlet and Violet moving forward, yeah, just don't fall for any tricks. This is
I
the
can
normal way.
almost I can almost guarantee that there is at least one eBay listing for Scarlet and Violet packs that says in the title guaranteed hollow.
Yeah. It's like, well, that is correct. That is technically accurate marketing.
That is true. You're not lying, but you're still a sleaze, like it's just crazy. But Sean, what else is coming in Scarlet and Violet?
I mean, the only other thing coming that could be interesting to some people are hobby stores usually get a whole bunch of stuff when the new set comes out, like, banners for the store and posters and stuff to put on the window, etc. Right?
I mean, you usually have probably seen, at least I feel like I see this a lot. When a new set comes out, there's like the poster where like you look on the left side and it's one thing, and you look on the right side and there's another thing, where you move it like changes. A lot of places are starting to give those out a lot for like league nights and things like that.
Yeah, I think they'll have that. I think there's one here called Reverse, but it says
That
double-sided.
might be what that is.
But I wonder if that's actually double-sided or if it is one of those like holographic-y type effects. Hard to say, but those have been really cool in the Sword and Shield era. The ones, like you said, where you can like move from side to side and it has like this effect. But the other things that you get are, and this is what you probably will get if you go into the store and they want to give this stuff away, are stickers and postcards. The stickers will feature each of the new starters, as well as Pikachu, obviously. And,
of course.
Is this Oink Oink or something like that, or
Lechonk?
Lechonk. Why did I think Oink Oink?
I don't know why you said that. Sean, real Pokemon fan out here. Hosts a 160 episode Pokemon podcast here.
Bruh, you know what? There's an Oink Oink Pokemon out there. It's gonna release in 5 years, and I will be a genius because
you'll be right.
Predicted the Oink Oink. I know there's a
give him his royalties,
but yeah. And then there's also cute postcards. Yeah.
There's a lot of cool things in here as well. In terms of the postcards, like, there's 4 different postcards, and you can actually, again, use it as a postcard. They show the back, and it's got the mailing, the sticker, and you can write a little message on there. So those are really cool that there's a variety of those. And then there's also a couple things. And so another thing that the Pokemon Company has put on, they've given each hobby store a set of these Ultra Pro Pokemon top loaders. So if you don't really know what a top loader is, it's if you see a break on like YouTube or something of people opening cards or whatever, usually when they get the big hit, they will slide the super rare card into the sleeve, and then they'll put it in this other like harder clear sleeve. That's called a top loader on it. It's got the Pokemon branding on it, Pokemon trading card game. I think these are sweet. I want some of these, to be honest. I don't know though, like what, because like when you put in a card, like I like seeing the full card, and even though the logo is only on the bottom third of this top loader, like it would still cover up part of the card.
Yeah, especially the kind of cards you're going to put into these from current sets, which are like going to be the full arts, right? And they're going to take up, you want to see the full art. I personally think these top loaders weirdly, like, look, if you're a fan and you pull something really awesome and the store gives you one of these to put your nice new card in, that's really nice. When you get home, if you happen to have old cards that you prefer, I think these are great for the older style cards. Like your base sets, your E-series, your jungle, all that stuff. Because really the stuff at that card that matters is really at the top half. And the bottom half is like, the text of whatever. But so I think this type of top loader will be really good for older cards, but that's just me.
And like I said earlier, I'm not going to say stores can't sell these things. They're not allowed to. They just use it however they decide. So it kind of varies place by place. But I was saying how like the poster that changes based on what angle you're looking at it. It is it could be one of those things where like, they give out the set of stickers one league night, or they give out the postcards, the double-sided poster, or even the top loaders, so it's just a cool thing, to look out for and check out. I mean, you should go to your hobby stores anyway, support them.
Indeed. But Jake, I think that brings us to the main topic of the evening, which is post rotation.
Post rotation. So, as you know, Pokemon has a rotation pretty much every single year in terms of the cards that are part of the standard format that are not part of the standard format. So, all your cards, if you look at the bottom of your cards in the standard format and all your decks, you look at what the cards are and you look at their regulation marks. The cards that are going to be rotating are the D block cards. So any of the cards that have a D in the bottom left-hand corner are going to be cards that are going to be no more here soon. Sean, do you remember the date of rotation? It's like
I want to say it's
later
April
this month.
13th.
Or okay, so yeah, it's in the next month or so.
Yeah, and the reason we're talking about it now, I mean, there's a variety of reasons, but obviously we have pre-release this weekend. The set officially releases at the end of the month, and usually a set becomes legal 2 weeks after its release date,
Mm-hmm.
and that almost always that coincides with a rotation when it happens. So when Scarlet and Violet becomes legal is when all those deregulation mark cards get rotated out.
So limit the card pool. Make sure you don't have any crazy, insane combos.
Yep.
Um,
And I will say,
yeah.
you might have some cards that have D on the bottom. It's important to know that have been reprinted and have new regulation marks in their newer versions. Examples of that will be Professor's Research, Energy Search, Energy Switch,
Regular switch.
yeah, a very important card, Regular Switch, Pokemon Catcher. There's a not small number of cards that have received some kind of reprint over the last 2 years into a new regulation mark. I think even is Boss's Orders. Did we determine that Boss's Orders got reprinted
Yeah,
as
I'm
well?
pretty sure Boss's Orders also got reprinted.
Yeah. So those two cards, it seems like what Pokemon is doing with Boss's Orders and reprint, the reason they didn't name the card anything other than a generic name is
So they can just change the characters.
exactly. And those two cards seem like they're going to be like Switch, in that every format is always going to have Switch, Boss's Order, and Professor's Research. Those are your draw, your gust, your switching card. Like
Your draw, your
guaranteed.
gust, and your switch. There's nothing else you need to know. But Sean, what do you want to talk about in this post rotation discussion?
Well, I have made a list, Jake, and this is not exhaustive, but I have made a list of the cards that I think are the most important, that are going to be rotating out. We can talk about what may replace them, if anything, what impact it may have on current meta decks, but we don't know everything. That might change because of all of this, but we wanted to give you guys a heads up as like some of the most popular cards to maybe look out for to take out of your deck come mid-April.
I will say also that when these cards rotate, so for example, one of the cards that we are going to talk about was from the base set, Zacian V, right? Zacian V came in, absolutely dominated, whatever. If you want to get like the cool Zacian card, right? The gold Zacian, usually what happens after cards rotate as well is they decrease a little bit in value because they're not considered vintage, right? They don't go up because of being old, but because they're not playable anymore, they go down a little bit in price. So there's a lot of cards in here that if you're maybe just a collector, maybe you want to hear about, because there are maybe some that are like, oh, maybe I don't want to buy this yet, or maybe now is kind of, or here in a couple weeks is the time to start getting into this card.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So I mean, I guess there's two archetypes entirely that I want to talk about rotating out.
Just give a 07, to them.
A big goodbye. The first one is Mad Party. Goodbye, Mad Party. I think it was a lot of fun while you lasted. But I
unfortunately never really saw like big time tournament play or whatever.
Well, because it was at the height of its power when we were still in lockdown, right?
Yeah.
And by the time we came out of lockdown, there were other single prize decks that were just better.
Yeah.
So it didn't really ever have its true Night March moment, which for those of you who don't know, Night March and Mad Party are kind of like very
They're
similar decks.
similar, except Mad Party is just worse
Yeah, it's a
because
slightly worse version.
Night March had Battle Compressor,
Yeah.
and that card is insane.
And Night March's damage output is not that much different, but it was in a time when the amount of damage needed was also less.
Like half. It was like literally half.
So, unfortunately, Mad Party is rotating. So, rip to that deck. And then the other one, which, long-time listeners will know, Eternatus VMAX is rotating. Which, I think it was obviously a pretty powerful deck at one point in the format. It did, weirdly enough, see a tiny bit of success right at the end here with Galarian Wheezing. But otherwise, it's kind of been a quiet run for the last year for E-Turn. And I think the strange thing for me is I don't actually know what, after this whole rotation happens, I don't know if there is a good dark deck anymore.
I'm trying to think, because you could argue like Darkrai V.
You
right,
could,
because Darkrai V, I mean, you still have Turbo Patch and stuff. Galarian Wheezing also rotates. There's another card in that we can just mention right now, like Crobat V, rotates out of the D block. So I think, but I mean, even then, like Darkrai, just not a strong enough candidate. Now that Mew VMAX isn't the #1 deck, right? People aren't just rolling up with your Darkrai decks anymore. You're like random dark decks.
Who needs a dark deck? You just have Drapion. Good to go. We don't need darkness. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's no, I mean, you're right. There is no good dark deck as of this point. So who knows? Maybe they'll pump one out in the future though. I don't know. I'm trying to think. The Circle of Life, right? If Lugia, weak to flying, is Silver Tempest poster child, Miraidon, Lightning, the poster child, do they go ahead and they print like a fighting card after it? Because Koraidon is in the set.
Well, Koraidon is the fighting type.
I know. So, like, what do they do after that? Do they just reset and go dark type then?
I mean, you could go psychic type. I think psychic, but you have Gardevoir. I don't know. I think they're trying to avoid what they did in the early Sword and Shield era, which was every set featured a hard counter to its previous set.
Mm-hmm.
It really does feel like they eventually got away from that design, mechanic, which is good.
Tried to, yes.
Yeah, they definitely tried to.
They printed Giratina, which has no weakness.
Exactly. So like that was them being like, let's stop this mess. This is a disaster. Yeah. Stop it.
Then they jumped right back into it with Lugia and Miraidon.
Well, yeah, sure.
Old habits die hard. But anyways, these old cards die hard too. Sean, what are some other interesting, points? Some of your favorites that you've had in the game that are rotating out.
So one card that is rotating out that I love, and it's kind of ironic because its former version I hated, Resource Management Oranguru. The one that is rotating is Primate Wisdom Oranguru, which is, for those of you who don't know, this is the one that lets you take a card from your hand and switch it with the card on top of your deck. Really,
it was good for Marnie proofing things. It was great for Colossal in its short lifespan. Do you remember that?
I mean, it's great with Lugia V-Star because if you have an energy that you need to put on with Archeops, you could just set it on top, power everything up, shuffle your deck, and then you're not going to draw into that card. It's great.
It's definitely a very, very good option in terms of some of your strategies where you want to grab things in the deck. Also with something like Mirage Gate decks, right? You might see an Oranguru in there, appear in there on the field. There's a good chunk of love in Oranguru. I know Oranguru was also very good in Zacian V, a card that we just talked about, in terms of using Intrepid Sword, I think it's called.
Yep, putting energy on top. Yeah, it's
to guarantee at least one attachment through the ability.
Yeah, I don't know if there are any cards that will remain in format where you can really manipulate the top of your deck to that degree. I don't think there's any new
not
stuff.
Necessarily. It wouldn't be necessarily like coming from your hand and putting it on the top of your deck. It would be Rotom phone, I think, which
which
also
rotates.
rotates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so. I think that's it's definitely a loss. I think Oranguru was a good card for players to like really use some strategy and think of some interesting interactions. So I'm sure that this card was I don't think this card was ever broken in any way.
Hmm.
And I actually really think this will be a type of ability that Pokemon will reprint. I really believe that.
You don't think they're gonna keep the instructor Rangaroo or the resource
Resource.
management Rangaroo? They're not gonna bring that back?
They might bring an instruct effect back, but like they've got so many discard draw or draw up to 5, draw up to 6. They have so many of those now that
They got Bibarel.
right. They have Bibarel. You don't need anything else when you have
You don't
Bibarel.
need anything else. Bibarel's perfect.
So this one is like more unique, and I really think that this type of effect, I see it coming back. Maybe it'll be a year, but I think it's a popular enough effect, both from a game design and a player perspective, that like, rip to Oranguru. We'll miss you, but yeah.
There's another Pokemon that I am going to be sad when it runs
Which
away.
one is that?
It's gonna be Zigzagoon.
Oh yes. Let me look
So
that up.
Zigzagoon, if you do not know, the little baby Pokemon, the dark Pokemon that has, I think it's called Headbutt Tantrum,
Indeed.
is the ability. It allows you to put a damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon when you play it from your hand onto the bench. Very cool little Pokemon. Very good combo as well with a couple other cards in the format, which we'll talk about later. But also had its own fun deck for a time being. The Galarian
Obstagoon.
Obstagoon. Yes, that's what it was
Yeah.
called. The
Yeah.
Obstagoon that basically blocked, what was it, basic Pokemon?
It blocked. Yeah, if you only had basics, you couldn't hit through.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a cool
Just
deck. I will say this one does get a kind of replacement in the the
in
Hawlucha.
Hawlucha, yeah.
Yeah. The only difference with Hawlucha, you get to put 2 damage counters, one on 2 different Pokemon, but they both have to be on their bench. So if the
And you
thing you're
can't really get Hawlucha out after rotation.
not into your hand, that's very true.
Yeah, I mean, it's much more tougher
Yeah.
than old Zigzagoon was, because I remember using combos of, getting 3 Zigzagoons down with 1 goon because of a card like Scoop Up Net.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was pretty broken.
Zigzagoon was great because you could reach a knockout, you could get really, really close, and again, we're going to be sad to see you go, but if you wanted the shiny, now's the perfect time. But another great card that Sean's looking up right now that got a lot of great fame, especially with Sander Wojcik, is Snorlax Gormandize.
Yep. This is the the stall and control player's best friend.
If you remember from way back in the day, the card that we joke about, Tropical Beach, the stadium being insanely expensive for no reason. Well, for good reason. It was a Worlds promo, and it was a really, really good card. But it had the effect of drawing up 2 cards in your hand and ending your turn. Snorlax with Gormandize has that same thing, allowing you to draw until you had 7 cards in your hand. And as a Pokemon with 130 HP, it was a pretty thick boy, to be able to maybe tank a small hit or something like that. It was a great 1 prizer to start off in the game. You're okay giving that up, in a deck that probably plays multiple prizes. Pokemon. Just a really, really cool, fun card.
Yeah, I mean, I think the benefit I will say is there are other ways for control to draw that exist in the format now. So the benefit with this one was it was such a simple card because it's a basic Pokemon. You just throw it down. To your point, it might be able to tank a hit from something small. So, and it only gave up 1 prize. So, like, yeah, it did fill a really interesting niche. But luckily, I do think there's other cards out there now that can do similar things. It just takes a little more work.
I will say it felt real good when you could quick ball or ultra ball away, cards and then Gormandize for a full 7
Oh my
or
gosh.
6.
Yeah.
Just felt really good to be able to churn through your deck like that.
Um, let me see
Another
here.
way you can churn through your deck, Sean, that's going away is a little line of 1-2 Pokemon. You could add a bunch of these on the field and had the beloved trade
Yeah.
ability. For those of us that know what that means, for those of you who may not know what that means, the ability is make do on the Chinchino, the 90 HP level ballable Pokemon. Discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 2. I think Liepard also has this effect.
Yeah, Liepard. I think Curlia has a similar effect now that they
Yeah.
reprinted. So the ability exists in other cards, which is good. The downside, and I think the thing that people don't give enough credit to this card about, is its attack. For 1 colorless energy, you do 40 damage, which don't that's not nothing. 40 damage for 1 colorless is actually not bad. But
It can work the math.
yeah, and the benefit here is you attach a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. So there were situations where that Chinchino can get you out of a pinch, you know? Think back to even when we had things like recycle energy in the format. So you could, if you had 1 recycle energy
I
and a
remember
Chinchino,
Recycle.
you could actually make comebacks against these stall decks and these control decks. Because hey, I can get my energy back. And the question is, do you have enough resources to get rid of my energy every turn? And maybe not. So I think that, this card had a really nice combination of things that people maybe overlook a little bit.
It had a lot of love in the beginning, or a lot of hate, whichever you interpret. One of what we call the worst formats of recent times, when Sword and Shield base set first released. And this was part of a mill deck that just was too fast and too good. But anyway, Sean, what's the next card that you're going to bring up?
I mean, I'm bringing this one up as an example, but it's all of the amazing rare cards are going away. I mean, it's a little sad to see them go because they're really cool. I think when they first came out too, Jake and I were like, these attacks cost crazy energy, but
These
if you can
suck.
ever power it up, they're awesome.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, because Yveltal right here, if you do not know its effect of the attack, it just says the Pokemon's knocked out. Reshiram is like 250 damage. Zacian's like, if this Pokemon is a VMAX, do 150 more damage,
So
and it's 300 total. So, I mean, these dudes were powerful.
Yeah, I mean, the Rayquaza had basically limitless. Not limitless, but enough to knock anything out if you get different energy on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're sitting here like, okay, these cards are crazy. They have crazy energy requirements, but I can see why they need to rotate, because they are really powerful, and we do still have the Lost Box engine, and that would severely limit new EXs from, I think, being powerful, because if all you need is a few of these amazing rares, it's just going to gatekeep 2 prizers in the format for a long time.
I will say the amazing rares were just binder bulk up until Silver Tempest released and Lost Origin released, because as we were talking about, if you can accelerate the energies, Mirage Gate having multiple energy colors, all the amazing rares, their attacks needing multiple different colors of energies, and then with Primal Turbo as well. Well, you may know that one, but we've got a bunch of other ones in this list. One that didn't get as much love as a lot of people, I feel like, thought it would. It kind of did in the very beginning, because of Arceus Palkia's Zacian in that deck. But Eldegoss V had a special place in some people's heart. It was the reincarnation of Tapu Lele V. When you play this Eldegoss V down from your hand on your bench, you can grab a supporter from your discard pile, put it into your hand. So I guess actually it's a reincarnation of Versus Seeker.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. It was Versus Seeker stapled onto a 2-prize Pokemon, which is much worse. But
it wasn't an item card, but
to your point, Jake, when you were playing a deck like Arceus Dialga Palkia, and all you needed was basically 2 knockouts to win the game,
Mm-hmm.
Then all you needed to do was, okay, do your thing to start the game, get one boss's order, take your first 3 prizes off of a Dedenne or a Crobat or whatever. Next turn, put an Eldegoss onto the one spot you left open on the bench, get that boss's order right back. I win the game. Thank you.
Everybody was
really
playing
annoying.
Crobats. Everybody was playing Dedennes. Everybody, because I don't think research was around at that point.
It might have been, but really,
no,
this
research came out in base set. Research came out in base set, so it was kind of around. But like, again, decks needed to go really fast, and so with Dedenne change, right, and a Crobat that you could play on top of it, you could draw a lot of cards really, really fast. So. Especially when the other deck, Arceus Dialga Palkia, was also playing really, really fast, right? They could get supporters in there in the bottom of the deck easy.
Yeah, I will say this card is a really good combo card for control.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it got a lot of love when Double Turbo came out.
Yes, because what this card also does, you can loop some supporter things where you grab a supporter that you need to disrupt, you play it, or to put things back into your deck. Then you put the Double Turbo on, float up, shuffle it and the Double Turbo back into your deck. Bob's your uncle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do still have some of those effects in like Pidgeot V and Luminion, but they don't have the added benefit of getting you the supporter you need as well. So, you know, so control's got to work a little harder. What is the next one that we're looking at, Jake?
Another set of control, but a different kind of style of control that has kind of made some noise within the last couple months. Vikavolt V with that paralyzing bolt attack, being able to turn off item cards in the format while also doing 50 damage on top of that, and especially when Lugia came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, doing weakness on top of that 50 damage. You know, the Vikavolt V got a lot of love in the last. Didn't it win one of the regionals? Vikavolt V Aerodactyl?
It might have. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it won.
Yeah, I mean, Vikavolt's had crazy success in the last couple of months. And, you know, I think with Miraidon coming out, it could have been a really crazy combo. Miraidon, Vikavolt, Regieleki, like all of that in one deck could have been really nuts. But, you know, life cannot exist like that, unfortunately. They can't have Lightning go back to being by far the most powerful archetype. So, you know, you got to lose something. And we're losing Vikavolt.
We're also losing probably one of the most consistent engines in recent Pokemon trading card game era. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about a little bug that didn't get quite as much love, in my opinion, as we thought, especially when it first came out in Sword and Shield base set. Frostmoth.
Yep.
Sean, Frostmoth, 90 HP water Pokemon, had the ability Ice Dance. So as many times as you want in your turn, you could get a water energy from your hand and put it on a benched water Pokemon. Came out at the same time as Lapras V and VMAX that had uncapped damage with the amount of water energies attached to it, but didn't really pan out.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of potential here. I think water took a weird turn, I think, about a year ago, where they clearly decided, hey, Frostmoth is not the direction we want to take water with lots of energy right now. And then they printed cards like Inteleon VMAX, which only needed 2 energy. And they printed cards like, oh my gosh, how am I blanking on this? The most popular water deck right now. What is it, Jake? Palkia.
Palkia?
Yeah, Palkia V-Star, which only takes 2 water energy. And then they printed Melanie, which was like, hey, unless you're attacking with single prizers, Melanie might just be better than having to set up a Frostmoth. So,
you can set up your Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX in one turn.
So they printed enough cards and they took water a different direction. I think they took it the direction that got it a little further away from grass. Because grass was also doing a similar accelerate energy from the hand thing. So, Frostmoth just kind of got forgotten as a way to do things. But Jake,
alongside it though, alongside it with Frostmoth, you're gonna go into this one. Okay,
I forgot.
To the consistent. No,
I skipped it.
All good. We're gonna go into the consistency engine, arguably one of the best and most consistent ways to play Pokemon in the modern era, and that is the Shady Dealings engine. So if you don't know what this is, it is the Sobble line, Sobble, Drizzile, and Inteleon. Sobble, the basic Pokemon, when you evolve it from your hand into Drizzile, you can search out for a trainer card, any trainer card in that. It is a 90 HP Pokemon, so you can level ball for it, which is another reason why it became so doggone good. I think this Drizzile, this uncommon at one point was $7 USD on the secondary market on TCG players. So if you hoarded these in Sword and Shield base set because you're like, maybe this could be really good, you may have gotten a payout in terms of your things. And then also Inteleon as well. Inteleon, Sean doesn't have it on screen because it's basically the same thing.
+1.
If you evolve Drizzile from your hand into Inteleon, you got to get 2 trainer cards, any trainer cards, and put them in your hands. So crazy consistency. Very, very good card. A lot of people got tired of this card, but there are some people that just absolutely love this. I think Ian Robb is a big fan of this line.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people. Like, I would say this line, in terms of a skill player perspective, this line might be one of the most impactful consistency engines in the last 10 to 20 years of Pokemon, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you also had Scoop Up Net in the format. So, like, on any given turn, you could search your deck, and it doesn't say item, it doesn't say support, it says trainer. That's like one of the broadest things that you could have put on this card, because we have cards that can search you for Pokemon. There's plenty of those. We have cards that can search you for energy. The only things that we can't search right now would be stadiums and trainers. And this gets you everything but stadiums that you would need otherwise. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So the downside is it would create turns that would take 5 minutes for your opponent because they would just be searching, picking things up. It's like a sequencing nightmare.
I will say you can pick up trainer cards with Shady Dealings, though, because they're trainer cards.
Like stadiums.
You're saying that completed
trainers?
it. Yeah, stadiums are trainers.
They're labeled as trainers. Yeah, so like...
Yeah, it's just like supporters. God. You know, it's a new category of trainers.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most broken engines, and the fact they printed it with Scoop Up Net, I don't know who managed to get that through Q&A in Japan, but like insane.
It was crazy because if you had a bunch of Sobbles, so like Battle Styles printed a Rapid Strike Sobble that allowed you with an attack to put more Rapid Strike Pokemon on your bench from your deck, so you could put all 4 Sobbles on the field at one point. If you top deck a Drizzile and you have Scoop Up Nets in your hand, you can Drizzile like 2 or 3 times in a turn with all those Sobbles on the field. So like you were saying with the Scoop Up Net, just crazy.
Yeah. All right, Jake. Those are all the Pokemon. And I want to go rapid fire now.
Mm-hmm.
Also just looking at the clock. Let's go rapid fire. What else are we losing? We're going into the item cards.
We got Capacious Bucket first. This was the combo that I was mentioning earlier with Frostmoth. Allows you to grab 2 water energies from your deck and put them in your hand. Very good in Palkia as well. Palkia really loved it. Ice Rider Calyrex really loved it alongside Melanie and discarding the things. But I don't know if it got as much love as Metal Saucer, because Metal Saucer, especially when it first came out in ADP, and Zacian V needing those 3 energies with Dedenne in the format, a bunch of discarding effects in the format. Getting energies in the discard pile was pretty easy, and so using Metal Saucer was very, very easy for those turn 1 attacks.
Especially for Metal, which doesn't have a lot of acceleration otherwise. So, another big one we're losing is Evo Incense. So I think the benefit of Evo Incense, because you might sit there and think, well, we have Ultra Ball. Isn't that better than Evo? Yes, sometimes. But you may not have 2 cards in your hand that you can get rid of, right? So
or that you want to, yeah.
Exactly. So Evo Instance was a nice option that you could have. I will say, we do have one that is either out or is coming out where you flip a coin and you can get one of either type.
I feel like I know what you're talking about, but there's also the what is it? It's like a Roma
Oh, yes,
thing.
yes.
It's the one card where it's like flip if heads get an evolution Pokemon, if tails get a basic or something like
I
that.
think that's what I was thinking. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe. I mean, that's a card that was in like one of the past regional lists, and we were like, wait, is this a meme? And it was like,
Oh,
no, it's
yeah.
actually serious.
So, like, you might replace it with that if you feel lucky. Um,
It also was nice because it allowed the consistency engines that we've talked about of Chinchino, Shady Dealings,
yep.
to progress, find those another out to those supporters to continue going through your deck.
A couple of others. I think one that I'll quickly mention, Hyper Potion we're losing. It's just a good, especially with double turbo in the format still. Healing 120 and just having to discard one energy is pretty good. But there's other healing cards, and that's not a huge format thing, but Ordinary Rod is a huge loss.
One of the big ones of the format, I would say losing that one. I mean, you see it all the time right now, like in any deck that plays like Mirage Gate.
Yep.
I mean, I think it was like the end of Swiss or like top 8. You saw combos of people playing the Ordinary Rod to put 2 energies in their deck and then immediately using Mirage Gate to feed it onto the Goodra or whatever Pokemon that they wanted.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to see a lot more energy recyclers and a couple of maybe some Claras in decks as a replacement. Because Energy Rod being 2 energy, 2 Pokemon or both, it's such a good card. And then the other big one we're losing is Quick Ball. We are getting Nest Ball, but Nest Ball puts something straight onto the bench, which does not activate when you play this from your hand effects.
It's like Zigzagoon, like a Nest Ball would not activate Zigzagoon, where a Quick Ball, getting the basic Pokemon putting in your hand would.
Yep. And Quick Ball is also good at, getting rid of cards in your hand, maybe.
Getting rid of those water energies to Melanie.
Yeah. So I think Quick Ball is also going to go down as maybe one of the best basic support, basic search cards that we've ever seen. Even over some of the ones that we've had in the past, because discarding 1 is not a lot to ask. Getting any basic and not having a restriction of 2 prizer or single or any of that, it's so definitely a Hall of Fame card there.
And I mean, Quick Ball is so good that when they brought it back, they rotted the old one to be able to fit with the new one.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And then the other one that I'll talk about in terms of items that's going to go down in history is Scoop Up Net. This card,
the single thing that got Shaman EX banned and expanded.
Yep. Yeah, you thought Shaman was banned because it was broken. No. Scoop Up Net is what got Shaman banned. So this card, if they ever bring expanded back, they will have to ban Scoop Up Net, I think. Because it is always going to cause problems because of the way the card was written. Because future cards that are 2 prize cards that it was not meant to interact with, they're going to have the same problem Shaman had, right? So it may be banned already. I don't think it is, but it
I don't think Scoop Up Net. Maybe Scoop Up Net was banned. I don't know, because Pokemon doesn't really do anything anymore with expanded at all. So why would we ever pay attention to it? It's crazy. But a card that's been around for a long time in multiple formats, Tool Scrapper, very, very cool. Allows you to discard different tools that are attached to your opponent's Pokemon. Some of them could be game winning, like removing big charms.
Yes.
Things like that. Big parasols. Right, there were several decks that played a big parasol to prevent attacks from the opposing Pokemon that were the win condition, essentially. And so that's going to be a card that I think a lot of people will miss. I know I was huge on Tool Scrapper when it first came out on this pod. You can go back and read the receipts, and people started playing. I mean, I don't think I had too much of an influence over that, but people started playing it. And I was like, what do you know?
Yeah. Now the only thing you got is Tool Jammer.
Yeah, Tool Jammer. Nobody plays that. I don't even recommend that. Although that did get played for a point.
It did in certain decks. There's only one stadium rotating that I think actually matters, and that's Training Court. The ability to go get 1 basic energy back from your discard every turn. It's a pretty useful effect, and if you're playing a deck that plays basic energy and you don't really need any other stadium, training court was just a good option because, like, okay, well, it doesn't really help my opponent that much. It helps me, and it's a stadium war option, right? If my opponent's playing something annoying, I can at least have this to get rid of it.
Especially if your deck does not play with energies in the discard pile, like Melanie or Flaffy, things like that. Training Court was excellent to get those energies back, especially multi-energy or multi-types of energy Pokemon. So then you could freely get what you got back, because it's probably, if you play 2 different types of energies, you have less than you would probably if you had 1 type of energy in your deck. So
Jake, what are the 2 supporters that I have on this list for us?
We'll talk about the first one because it makes people's eyes twitch less, I would say. Bird Keeper is going to be leaving the format. The switch card that allows you to draw cards saw a lot of fun in the format, whether that was control decks, Spiritomb, right? Spiritomb was playing that deck for a while, and it was just a really, really cool option. Anytime that we've also had like multiple Pokemon with abilities in the active, you know, getting them out of the active to be able to do something else, Birdkeeper's been a great option. It's never been really like a 4 of in most decks. It's mostly just been like a 1 or 2 type of thing, but it was a really cool 1 or 2 in my opinion, giving you the 1 and then something else on top of that with the switch and then draw 3.
Yeah, I feel like Serena is like a bad version of Birdkeeper in some ways, because it's like,
I would say Tate and Liza is a bad version of Birdkeeper.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
But Tate and Liza had its own benefits because it gave you the option of doing one or the other, switching or shuffle draw 5. But I really like Birdkeeper.
I mean, the one though that I think some people love, some people hate, everybody realizes it's a problem, is Marnie.
Marnie, the way that you could easily have broken the game state. For those of you that don't know, maybe you're just innocent, right? Marnie is a supporter that tells you shuffle your hand and then put it at the bottom of your deck. A lot of people, because N was so popular, a lot of people just shuffled their hand into their deck.
Yeah.
Causing an irreversible board state, and therefore the person that did it just automatically loses. There's also some interesting rulings on top of that caused a little bit of issues when it first came out, is if neither player had any cards in their hand after that card was played, it just didn't do anything. You didn't draw any cards.
Yeah, at least one person has to shuffle and put something on the bottom.
Yeah, so it was a card that was really, really good, really, really fast. I remember the full art Marnie being like, I think it was like $75 at its peak, or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is now, but it is a card that almost everybody hated because, you know, I got Marnied into a dead hand or whatever.
Yeah.
But whatever, just build a more consistent deck, I guess.
Get good. I mean, yeah, Marnie was a weird card because it was basically this weird threat that hung over every turn. You're like, do I search for this card now because they might Marnie me? And if they Marnie you, you will not see that exact card again. It goes to the bottom. You cannot see it again from the cards you draw unless your deck is only like 6 cards.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Marnie was definitely one of those annoying cards that like you had to like imagine your opponent always had it. And it was weird because early in the format, there was only 2 supporters people played for draw, Research and Marnie. And so you'd have like 4 lines of those. And it was just like, there's so much.
It was like that. And then Rebel Clash came out and you just added 4 bosses orders into your deck.
Yes, that was your whole supporter. It was easy to build a deck because there was only 3 supporters that were any good. But, oh boy.
A lot of people will rejoice, but some people might not rejoice to a card like Air Balloon. Now getting into the tool cards, Air Balloon, really, really cool. Allowed you to switch Pokemon. Item cards that allow you to switch more, you know, Air Balloon lowering your retreat cost by 2 on the Pokemon that it is attached to. Those types of cards have always been really nice because you've had support Pokemon like Mew in the
Yeah.
format. Mew from Celebrations that, allowed you to look at the top cards, etc. People will remember Escape Board and
Oh
Jirachi
my gosh.
being the big wombo combo in terms of the dynamic duo of tool card and Pokemon. But yeah, I mean, Air Balloon never saw as much play as like a skateboard did with Jirachi, but Air Balloon was still very, very viable because people for a while just kind of stopped playing like Switch cards,
Mm-hmm.
like the actual Switch cards, and they just did more manual switches of like attach and retreat or something of the sort.
Yeah, I think this type of thing, they've had Float Stone, like you said, Skateboard, Air Balloon. There's been a lot of cards that have reduced retreat cost and made those pivots easier. I
Some
don't
more
know.
broken than others.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to take this because they tend to favor switching it up like a little bit back and forth. So I don't know. My gut says the next iteration of this, because there will be another iteration, will be either a basic one prize Pokemon that's on your bench that gives your active Pokemon 2 retreat less or 3 retreat less, like something pretty good, right? Like that you'd want it in there. Or an energy card that reduces it by 2. So it
Mhm.
provides one colorless and reduction. Like I think I would like that because it basically would give you the effect of 2 tool cards typically on one Pokemon, which I don't know. I think that'd be kind of neat. But
I will say, I don't remember if it rotates, but the hiding energy,
that
that's
does
what it's
rotate.
called.
It does.
That card, even though not on our list, that's kind of like what Sean's alluding to in that it's a sense like that where it gives you the dark energy and the Pokemon it's attached to has no retreat cost. But
Yep.
I don't know what they're gonna do next, to be honest, in terms of the card. I mean,
Yeah.
they had U-turn board before that,
Yeah. Nobody played
-1
it.
retreat, but I mean, I did in Control.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there were specific decks that might play it, but
It was
yeah.
very niche.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I
What other tool cards, Sean?
There's 2 more. There's Big Charm, gives you 30 more HP. They'll reprint something very similar to this. I'm not worried about that being lost. And then there is actually they might have already reprinted one.
Well, they have Cape of Toughness. Is that going away?
Yes, that also goes away. But
Shucks.
they also have Big Parasol, and I'm going to mention this and one of the energies that's going away because this was one of those important pieces to sort of set up an unbeatable board. So if you had Big Parasol and you had Wash Energy on something like your Ice Cube or whatever, like that sort of combination of cards could basically could shut down some decks entirely, right? Like, hey, your deck, like some Lost Box decks, you can't place damage counters, and if you have no more Cramorants, what are you gonna do? You have nothing. You can't do anything to me. Good luck. And so
Yeah.
not having those options makes those strategies stronger. But yeah, it is interesting seeing those 2 things go.
I mean, and it's had time since the beginning with the Decidueye that I mentioned earlier, that kind of wall deck, as you were talking about with Ice Cube as well. I think it's like can't be hit by basic Pokemon?
Yeah.
Or is that Red Dice?
No, Regice says basic, your opponent's Pokemon can't attack. Wash Energy is like you can't be affected by effects of your opponent's Pokemon as long as it's attached to a water Pokemon, I think. It's a kind of a weird way to read it, but it helped you like basically put up a wall against certain decks, which you won't have anymore.
It also stopped in stuff like Duraludon decks when you'd face up against a Yveltal amazing rare, the effect that just says this Pokemon, the opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out.
Yeah.
Stops that effect. So that helped out a lot of decks entirely. But I will say one of the hardest hits for a lot of decks, especially Lugia decks, is the Aurora Energy. And now going into the special energies, Aurora Energy, in my opinion, it might actually be the second biggest card in the special energies to rotate. I think you could probably guess, Sean, what the biggest card is in my mind. But Aurora Energy allowed every single colored energy, right? And it allowed you to attach it from your hand, and you could discard a card on top of that. So something like, if you, yeah, I mean, Lugia, Archeops, Regice,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, Reggie in general, having to put other special energies in there. And it also allowed for cards like Reggie and Lugia to where they get it in other places from your hand to be able to attach it essentially for free without the effect of discarding. So very, very cool card. Love. I think this card was pretty fair as well.
Yeah, I agree,
Rainbow
especially
energy,
compared to Rainbow.
yeah, I mean, Rainbow Energy, you just put 1 damage counter on it, but which I think is somewhat fair. I think not as fair anymore with Pokemon being so big. But anyways,
Yeah.
I think Aurora Energy was really cool. I wish it would stay, but we got to move on.
Yeah, and I will say there will be a 3 to 4 month window where there is no Rainbow Energy in the format.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get our replacement until the Japanese set Triplet Beat makes it over here in like June. And even then, that energy says you can only have one of them on a Pokemon providing any color at a time. If you have more than one, they all provide colorless.
Which is a really cool effect. We talked about that on
Yeah.
the podcast actually a couple weeks ago.
So, losing Aurora and knowing that there won't be a replacement for it in terms of like it's pure, like it just provides the all colors and you could put multiple. So that makes it much harder for Lugia to do certain things because we're also losing all of the other colored energy, and most of their colored energy like lightning, heat fire, wash energy, horror dark, horror psychic,
Aroma?
hiding dark. Aroma.
The grass one?
Oh, we might actually keep Aroma. I don't remember.
Do we keep that one?
Probably not. But like the point is all these other energy cards that provide a specific type of energy when attached to the right Pokemon, those all also go. So Lugia is going to have to change to, I don't even know, Jay.
To its more vanilla, like or like Archeops, or I'm sorry, Regigigas.
Yeah.
I've seen some people playing some Regigigas lately. I think Tate Whitesoul was playing Regigigas and like won locals or like some kind of locals tournament going on. That was pretty crazy seeing Regigigas.
Yeah. So all of those things are going to make these big archetypes right now very different because you can't rely on having lots of different colors of energy. So
we'll see how it goes. But what they can still rely is, in my opinion, the biggest special energy to leave the format. It's capture energy.
Yep.
Capture energy. We talked about it. The most expensive card in Regidex.
Yeah.
Being at like $3 or something. What was it?
It was like $1.50, but still for like one of your energy cards, that's silly expensive.
Capture energy was instrumental because it was another out to find another Pokemon, advance your board state, even by just a little, right? If you could only just put a Pokemon on the bench, make it eligible to evolve next turn. Capture energy, in my opinion, was a super cool card. I love that you could just attach it. It's just a colorless energy, right? And it's one, but it allowed you to find just a basic Pokemon to put on the bench. And, it was great for pivots as well. We see like Lost Box decks right now use it with the Comfeys to be able to retreat between them. And so that allows you to grab another Comfey and retreat between the two. So I'll be real sad to see Capture go.
Yeah. It's just a great energy. It's the thinking man's energy, or the thinking person's energy, if you will. The only other card that I even mentioned, we'll mention it briefly, Powerful Colorless. It found very niche homes, but the fact that Lugia cannot just load itself up with Powerful Colorless to knock out an opponent's Lugia or whatever, that's kind of a big deal. That limits Lugia's output to like 250 max. So
with a choice belt or something.
Exactly. That's a big deal. So we'll see how that affects the format.
And Powerful Colorless, I mean, as well, with what is that Pokemon? Stoutland V?
Yeah.
Stoutland V sniping away at the Greedon V Maxes. Those wonderful Pokemon that just absolutely love getting that extra damage on the Powerful Colorless. And it's gonna be goodbye. But Sean, the Metapod has a history of really saluting a single card. Yes, burning a card, putting it on fire. What is the card this year?
I don't want to reveal. I don't want to reveal. It will be on our Twitter It will be.
It will.
It will be on our Twitter on the day of rotation.
Oh, okay.
That's our tradition. We always put it out the day that
that's
things
right.
rotate. Yeah. So
It is.
I wonder if people, tweet at us, comment on the YouTube, whatever you like to do. Tell us what you think the card will be. I've already decided. I know what the card is, so I will not be swayed.
I don't know what the card is, so this is going to be a surprise to me.
I know what the card is. I thought about it. I know what the card is. So, but make your guesses and see if you are right on April 13th.
I will say
I might burn a Japanese version of the card because I might be in Japan when I record that video.
Oh, yeah. Well, be careful. Let me know, and I can maybe burn it. I don't want you to burn down any buildings or get arrested in Japan or so. I don't know. Anyways, we posed the question last week. Let us know if our voices sound the same with what we look like. And Briggsy Music 2 days ago commented, in my mind, your voices were swapped with how you guys look.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So maybe one day for April Fools, I'll switch to be Sean and Sean will switch to me, but we'll always be on the topic of the Pokemon Trading Card Game podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you later in next episode.